Blessed morning. I want to welcome you to Journeying to the Heart of Jesus Christ, Stories of Faith. I want to introduce my dear friend, more of a brother, Tim Safford, the director of Christ Church. So Tim, thank you for being here.
Great.
And tell us about your story. Tell us about your formation, how you found Christ in your journey to faith.
My mother was an angry ex-Catholic, and my father was an even angrier ex-Episcopalian. And the year was 1967, 1968, and I had older brothers and sisters in college. So our household was just, an explosive area of the 60s. My father was a Goldwater Republican. My mother was a Stevenson Democrat. And in a huge fight one night, my mother said to my father, "Yeah, he hasn't even been baptized, And so my father finally relented, and they took me to the local Episcopal church, and I sat here as a 8-year-old, 9-year-old with the rector, just like that, and he said, "Tim," this is George Regas, "Tim, do you want to be born into the family of Christ forever, just as you were born into your own family?" And at that moment, my own family didn't seem that attractive. So I said, "Absolutely," and I was baptized. It just grabbed onto me. I can remember clearly my baptism. I can remember that great feeling of grace, and then later, 12, 13, when my father was ill, I took refuge in the church, became a part of the youth group, and the gospel just always spoke to me. I mean, I would be in church twice on a Sunday, started reading the scriptures, started taking seriously the call, and at that time, I feel I committed myself to ministry, be it ordained ministry or not ordained ministry wasn't so much in my mind. And that went away when I got through to college. I became a philosophy and religion major. I was very influenced by the existential Christian philosophers like Kierkegaard, and went through college and chose that I was going to try to live my life in the church. I didn't know what I was going to do as an academic or so on and so forth, but went to Yale because I wanted that great academic integrity, and then started working in churches really for money. To kind of put myself through school, and overwhelmingly felt the sense that I was to give my life in service to the church, and that's very much my journey of faith. Because I was schooled very much in the philosophical tradition, I try to hold the variety of dogmatic and faith beliefs within our church all in tension with each other. I think that to live your life in the Christian faith with its extreme diversity and tensions, we need to put ourselves sort of in the middle of that field and find our way into different expressions and different traditions so we know exactly who we are.
That's beautiful.
Oh, great.
But one thing about you, Tim, is you have this brilliant mind. You have this heart. And we're talking about the heart of Christ. But I see you seeing Christ in the different people who come through that door and through your experience. And tell us, how have you seen Christ in the people in your time through your regular walk in life?
Well, I think that Jesus has to be real. Jesus can't be in the stained glass, of which we don't have any at Christ Church. Jesus can't be an image on a crucifix. Jesus has to be somebody you can touch and experience, and that's because he becomes incarnate in the people who seek to follow him. And this is the case for me. When I think of why I am a Christian, it's because of Cesar Chavez, who I met as a young man. It's because I can remember Dr. King coming to Pasadena in 1968 and shortly before his assassination, and speaking in the Rose Bowl to a packed crowd, and the rector of All Saints Pasadena, when I was a boy, being willing to introduce him when he was, which was, came at a great cost, of being with, of remembering the witness of Archbishop Romero, of driving Archbishop Tutu and seeing, how he was willing to put his life on the line. That made Jesus real to me. And without those examples, it's hard for me to keep my faith. And I think now we're interestingly living in a period of time where we don't have a crystal clear, stellar example of who is incarnating Christ in a prophetic manner. And so I think that the church, a church like Christ Church, as best we can, full of all that history, still needs to articulate how the Spirit of the living Christ is involved in people going to the border, people taking care of people on the streets, just mercy in the life of the congregation. And for me, the heart of Christ then is not necessarily an inner spiritual state, but an outward manifestation of something that makes Christ real to another. You know, we excel at incarnational Christianity. Francis, you know, the most admired and least imitated of the saints, right? Mm-hmm. Francis said, preach the gospel. Only use words when you have to.
Tell me, if someone on this journey of faith, you'd give them one piece of advice, and if they're seeking and searching, and even in this troubled time that we are journeying through, which is not unusual, what would you say?
Well, you know, I last night I went to see a young man, 15 years old, who just lost his father to cancer. And he said, we were praying, and he said, I'm not mad at God, I'm mad at cancer. I just was so shaken with that. And I said, well, my advice, and I hope this will answer the question. I said, Ethan, God is mad at the cancer too. You have to trust that, but God needs you to take out God's anger at the cancer. Now, I don't know if that means he's going to end up in the lab, you know, working on oncology medication. But it was the advice was permission for him to know that God is angry too at the state of the world. Mm-hmm. Not that we're expected to suffer silently, but that we're supposed to rise up and do something about it, I think is my advice to every pilgrim who's trying to get into the mind of Christ, into the heart of God.
That's beautiful. That's why I love you.
I love you too.
Tim, thanks again, my brother. I love you. And I can't wait to get back to Christ and give my love to them. And thank you, and please continue to join us for this series, and you'll hear beautiful stories of faith like Tim's. Thank you. God bless you.